Hello, fellow friends, family degenerates, and welcome to a unique lightning round edition of Caged Wisdom MMA. We're going to be breaking down UFC 296 as fast as humanly possible. If you want a more in-depth analysis of all the fights, then obviously go to Spotify for a podcast or anywhere that you like to listen to your podcast, because we're pretty much on all of them at this point. So we're going to get started quickly and immediately. So first fight. Vicente Luque plus 275 taking on Ian Gary minus 345. Your thoughts?
I think this is going to be a tough one for Ian Gary, but I think that he can follow the Wonder Boy playbook, how Stephen Thompson beat Luque back in 2019, I want to say. Staying on the outside, making Luque come to him, countering him when he comes in on straight lines, and making sure that he stays off the fence and that he always has room to escape out the side door. Gary can do that. I think he's got this one.
I think Ian Gary could be the next big thing. He was amazing against Neil Magny. I didn't think he had that in him. He's got all the talent. You know, my biggest concern with him is we haven't seen much of him on the ground yet. Vicente Luque is a very dangerous opponent. You know, he's a perennial top 5 contender. But I think that we're going to see a little bit of a changing of the guard here. I'm going to take Ian Gary. What do you think, by decision?
Yeah, I think he's decision.
I think it's by decision too. All right, next fight. Tony Ferguson plus 240 taking on Paddy the Baddy Pimblett minus 298.
This is a make it or break it fight for both guys, honestly. If Paddy doesn't show a lot of defensive improvements or striking improvements and fix some bad habits that he's had for a long time with the chin up and the hands down and leading with big looping shots and kind of sitting down on his power without setting it up, Tony's can still punish that, even though he's still really, he's washed, he's lost 6 in a row, but they always say power is the last thing to go, and Tony can still crack if nothing else. I think if Paddy can get this to be a grappling fight as fast as he can and start to control and wear on Tony early on, I think that's going to be his mode to victory.
I agree with you on this. I think Paddy is not who we thought he was over the last couple of years. You know, he had a pretty big name, pretty big following behind him, but he is a really good grappler. He's a decent striker. He's got a lot of power in his hands, but he's got that wicked problem of overcommitting on his punches and leaving his chin up and making some poor, reckless decisions out there. Now, you'd think Tony Ferguson, the fact that he's fought literally every possible guy at lightweight except outside of Khabib, would be able to capitalize on that. But the thing that we've seen with him over the last, 6-fight losing streak is that, he's lost his mojo. He's on his way out. This is going to be a swan song, and I don't know if he's going to win that swan song. I think Paddy is going to take this fight, if by no other reason than Tony Ferguson has gotten old. And, he's lost it. So, all right, so we're both taking Paddy Pimblett on that one. Next fight is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov, minus 650, taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at plus 470.
This should go to Rakhmonov. I think, what'd you say, it was minus 650 or something?
Yeah,
that's
big,
way too
big.
much.
I agree.
That's disrespectful to Stephen. I will say the way that Wonderboy has lost his last 2 fights was by getting controlled against the cage and getting controlled on the ground by better grapplers, Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad.
Correct.
And Shavkat is an incredible grappler and is exactly the kind of grappler that can do that to Wonderboy. However, to argue for Wonderboy, Shavkat makes defensive errors as well. Not quite as egregious as Paddy Pimblett, but I think when he smells blood, he forgoes all of his defensive reactions and his skills and just goes in for the kill, swings big, opens, just like Paddy with these kind of like big underhanded shots from the rear side, which leaves, his open side totally exposed for counters. He closes the distance with that like big lead charging knee with both of his hands down again. And there is almost no sniper in the UFC like Wonderboy. He is such an awesome counter striker and eats guys who charge at him like that for lunch.
Yeah.
Still don't know if that's enough. I think Rakhmonov is still going to take it if he can get it to the ground.
Yeah, Shavkat outside of Khamzat Chimaev is probably the most promising up-and-comer that I've seen. I mean, and we also have Ian Gary on this card as well, so I think there's a tremendous – this is a really good card. by the way. And yeah, I'll agree. So Stephen Thompson, arguably the best striker to ever enter into the UFC. But the thing is, he's 40 years old, and he's been flip-flopping wins and losses, and both of his losses have come to grapplers. If Shavkat was a striking phenom, I think that this fight is a little bit closer. It's certainly closer than the minus 650 odds that Shavkat
That's insane.
is right now. It's insane. But Shavkat, he passes the eye test. I've had my eye on him for 2 or 3 years now, and thinking that this guy is going to be a title contender here pretty soon. So given his age and the fact that he can grapple, I am worried too about the counter strikes with Stephen Thompson, because, if he gets hit clean, that could be lights out. So, but I'm taking Shavkat Rakhmonov in this one, and I'm going to take it probably via decision. I think via decision.
I hope decision for Wonder Boy's sake.
I do too, because I love that guy. All right, next one for the flyweight championship. Alejandro Pantoja minus 185 is taking on Brandon Royval plus 154.
I'm going to say that this fight is going to go similarly to the last one. I don't know.
They fought before, by the way.
They fought back in 2021, and I just don't know that Royval has had enough adaptations in his game that's going to beat what Pantoja does. And Pantoja hasn't adapted his game too much since then either, but he has been winning with it. Any single opening he can get on the feet. Right? Yeah, any opening he can get on the feet, he is going to try and take the back standing, pull you down on top of him so he can take back with hooks and pursue a rear naked choke. And it's worked more often than it hasn't. And it took him a round to figure out how to nail Royval down. He's such an incredible scrambler, but round 2, first time Pantoja got him down in that round, he was able to secure that RNC and get the win. Yeah, I think it's going to happen pretty similarly.
Okay. So I agree. I'm also taking Pantoja. I think that he does everything that Brandon Royval can do, but just a little bit better. But more important, the fact that, Pantoja's got amazing grappling, amazing striking, heavy hands, elite submissions on him, is the fact that Royval leaves a lot of openings. He leaves openings on the ground during his scrambles, and he also leaves openings on the feet. I think that's going to be his downfall. I think if the flyweight division was a little bit deeper, we wouldn't be seeing this fight so quickly, because they only fought a couple years ago, and there's only been a couple fights in between those. So, I think this is a fight of necessity at this point, just a lack of options. But I'm going to take Pantoja. No disrespect to Brandon Royval, but that's the way it's going to go. All right, and finally, the main event, which is Leon Edwards minus 166. Taking on Colby Covington plus 140 for the welterweight title. What are your thoughts?
I think this is going to come down to Colby's pace, his weaponized cardio pressure, and how that matches up against Leon's ability to control the pace with his feints and his strikes and his counters and his clinch control. Leon Edwards is very, very good at making his opponents fight at his pace, and Colby Covington is very, very good at making his opponents fight at his pace. And I don't know how successful Colby would be if he couldn't fight a high-paced action fight. I don't know if he's going to be able to outstrike Leon if he can't also outwork him and gas him out. I think that the threats that Edwards has on the feet, and the additional threats of the clinch grappling and the strikes in there and his control, I think that's going to be enough to slow Colby down. And I don't think Colby's going to have enough outside of that pace to beat Leon. I think it's going to be Edwards by decision.
Okay. So I think that you're wrong on this one. I love your assessment. I love your breakdown. But I do think that you're wrong on this one. So I think Colby Covington, like the things that you mentioned, he's got amazing cardio. He's got a granite chin. He also has zero quit in him. The biggest concern I have with Covington right now is the fact that he's been on ice for a year after getting, jumped by Jorge Masvidal in a Miami steak bar, whatever that was.
They're 1-1 now.
1-1. And then Leon Edwards, he's a really good fighter. I didn't even see him beating Kamaru Usman. But the thing that concerns me about him, I agree with all the things that you said. He's got great defensive wrestling, great clinch work. He's really good on when he breaks out of the clinch, which could be a big problem for Colby Covington. Is the fact that Kamaru Usman is a fading fighter right now, right? And he outworked Leon Edwards in the first fight when he was a little bit higher up, and he essentially he kind of broke him, right? I mean that was my take on it. It seemed like that Leon Edwards was a broken man. He was quitting in there, and he got that Hail Mary head kick on Kamaru Usman in round 5. So I think this is an extremely close fight. I think that Leon Edwards, will be very good at kind of keeping him off base for the first couple of rounds. But if Colby Covington is able to take one of the first 3 rounds, I think that this is going to be his fight to lose. So, this whole fight, I believe, is going to happen within the first 3 rounds. And then, if Colby Covington takes one of those, I think he's going to win by decision. But I think it's razor thin, and I think it's a risky fight for both of these guys.
It's a good one.
All right.
Close, too.
Very close. All right, that's it to us, and we appreciate it. We hope you guys enjoy watching UFC 296, and we'll be back in January for UFC 297. Over and out.